I am not a cheerleader for Bitcoin, nor am I a cynic on Bitcoin. I have had my experience with the Bitcoin bros who can be a bit much. It's sort of like I said about pot smokers. I think if people would smoke their pot or do their gummies or do whatever else they do and not go to festivals and blow it on everybody else, then people wouldn't have so much of a problem with it. But Bitcoin is in the news quite a bit today, and it's constantly kind of hovering. And I think under this president, you're going to see that more and more the case because he's a fan of it. That's clear. He spoke at the crypto conference. He has given kind of the imprimatur or imprimatur, however you prefer to say it, the blessing to discuss this openly. And coming out of the dark has been. I got a lot of listeners. We have a show sponsor called thearchpublic.com. And the owner is a friend of mine, Tillman Holloway. He was a superstar football player at the University of Texas. And he's from a gold star lineage of his father was an All-American in football at the University of Texas and then an NFL Hall of Famer as an NFL player. And his other grandfather was a guy named Jack Trotter, who in Houston was a legend. And this guy was a deal maker extraordinaire. And everybody in Houston above the age of 60 or certainly 70 remembers this guy when he was the stuff of movies. Anyway, so Tillman is my kind of guru on Bitcoin matters. And because this issue comes up a lot, I called him and was fortunate enough to catch him free to speak to us for a moment. So Tillman, the first question I want to ask you, we had a caller going into the break, and she said, what is Bitcoin backed by? Because the dollar is backed by gold. And I explained, no, it's not. We're off the gold standard. But explain where the value of Bitcoin comes from.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's start with what is the value of money? What are the properties of money that make it valuable? Scarcity is one of them. We have to trust that someone can't print it to infinity, that there's a scarce amount of them because that creates stability. We have to have divisibility. It has to be able to measure a grain of sand and the entire economy because it's an indicator of that inflation. It has to be portable. We have to be able to, in a digital economy, move value very quickly across the globe in a way that is efficient and doesn't cost a lot. It has to be verifiable. The money has to be something that we can verify settlement and transactions. So the way we trust money right now is through intermediaries, through other companies like the Visa network, like SWIFT. There are third parties that charge a lot, that use archaic technology to get it done. It takes a long time. It injects a lot of friction into that said world economy. And Bitcoin changes all of that. Bitcoin is absolutely scarce. There is only 21 million that will ever exist, and no one can print more. It's divisible down to 8 zeros beyond the decimal point. So you can trade 1 sat, which is a fraction of a cent, all the way up to transferring billions of dollars across the globe for dollars and pennies. It's divisible. It can measure in that, 8 decimal points. You can measure all the way up to a world economy. You can literally put trillions and trillions of dollars into the network, and it can be measured very, very effectively. It's built that way. It's portable. I can literally send that Bitcoin anywhere I want, any day of the week. No one can stop me. It's peer-to-peer with no third-party intermediary. It's verifiable. The network of computers that make up any valuable company today. Google, what is it? It's a network of computers. Amazon, what is it? A network of computers. Facebook, what is it? A network of computers. Bitcoin is a network of computers, just like all of those companies. But instead of it being controlled by a central company that has their motives in the forefront of their existence, this is a code that every computer that wants to participate in the network has to abide by the rules. It has to use the exact code or it does not get into that said network. That Bitcoin network has grown over the last 16 years to be the largest network that's ever been created by man, that's transferred more value, trillions and trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars of value, without one accounting error, without one double spend error, from anywhere on the globe to anywhere on the globe, any day of the week. So it is, by definition, the best form of money that's ever been created. And when we used to measure things against gold, we had limitations. Gold is not portable. You can't send gold anywhere you want to any day of the week without a great deal of security cost, transportation costs. And if you send it via paper, there's no final settlement. So you're making compromises on what we value as the core characteristics of money with any asset other than Bitcoin. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And so when you buy into Bitcoin, you're buying into a network that is the largest on earth that can achieve transactional finality in a very short period of time, which is on average 12 minutes. So it's like being able to send cash in an email. And once that person opens up the email and pulls the cash out, you can't get the cash back. There's no chargebacks. There's no fraud on the credit card. There's no friction. It's finally settled. So that value in that network is constantly being recognized by the biggest players in financial spaces, because that value has real world implications that allow you to scale tremendous capital into it and build financial products off of it. And we've seen the largest growth over the last year of ETFs in the history of ETFs. The most successful ETFs are all Bitcoin-based ETFs, and ETFs are being added for all of the peripheral altcoins on a daily basis. It's literally the fastest expanding financial market that exists. Why? Because people demand volatility and people demand final settlement. People are demanding that the printing of our cash come to an end. And at the very least, they want to hold something that gives them the truest indicator in real time of the global inflation rate of anything that man's ever created. So that is kind of my, sorry for the soapbox, but that's why Bitcoin is valuable.
No, I think it's important. I think it's like a number of other things. The deep state spying on us would be another good example, or what actually goes into the COVID clot shot. It's one of those things that nobody really understands it, but nobody wants to admit it. So they just kind of loosely refer to Bitcoin and whether it's good or bad. And part of the reason the Bitcoin bros become so annoying is once you dive in and actually understand the system, whether you're for it or against it, once you dive in and actually understand it, it has so many things that are exciting. You talk about the portability or the fungibility or the and you don't even get into the fact that the government can't control it the way they can the currency, and we've seen that with monetary policy. Then they're the ones that are excited and nobody else knows it, and they begin evangelizing. Hold on just a moment. Tillman Holloway, his website is thearchpublic.com.
The Michael Berry Show.
I got a call from Bertha asking me about Bitcoin. And rather than me answer, I have a limited understanding of Bitcoin. I said, let me call the guy that I trust on the matter. And he spent more time on Bitcoin than anybody else I know. He has a company called thearchpublic.com that clears, it's a software company technically, that clears your Bitcoin transactions. And maybe if we have a minute, I'll ask him to explain how that works. It's fascinating. We've had more than a few conversations about this because he was one of the guys that could break it down and make it easy to me without hyping it. Anyway, so Tillman Holloway is our guest, thearchpublic.com. So Tillman, I think the biggest question, and this is, we've all seen the multi-level marketing schemes and scams take off. We've all seen people try to chase dollars and growth with these crazy, and that's how people get into the Bernie Madoff trouble, and that's how they get into the Alan Stanford trouble. And something sounds too good to be true, it's usually not, and you got to ask tough questions, and you got to be cynical or at least skeptical. So I think the biggest question people would have, and I think this was why the earlier caller called in, and I wanted Tillman to talk about this, is this fear that you put money into Bitcoin and then it's just gone? What happens to keep it from just evaporating? We've seen these pump and dump schemes with these, Hawk Tuah girl and different famous people who push a coin or something, and then everybody puts their money in, and all of a sudden, boop, pump and dump. They get all the money in, they run away, and what can we do about it? So speak to that and try to be sensitive to the fact that there are very smart people who can't figure this darn thing out, and they're scared. And I think this probably keeps money out of the market that could be, the Bitcoin market that could be, you know better than I do, because they're scared that one day somebody turns off the switch and there's no Bitcoin left.
Yeah, so you ended the last segment with saying that there is no central party like a government that can shut it down or control it, and you're 100% right, and that's what makes it special. The network that I was referring to as being the biggest network that's ever been built to handle final transaction settlement, that network is being operated by free market dynamics. There are a group of people called miners, and those miners are people who have plugged computers into the wall and given 100% of that capacity of that computer to the network, to the Bitcoin network. And that is what provides the security, and that's what prints the next Bitcoin out of the 21 million total that will ever be created. So when you're a miner, you get rewarded for that computational power you're giving to the network in Bitcoin, and that's the birth of the new Bitcoin that come onto the network. That will stop at 21 million, and so there will be no more Bitcoin mined. That's the scarcity factor of Bitcoin that drives the price up. So the network itself can't be shut down by any individual. It's millions and millions of people on every corner of the globe. Let's just say there was, the worst event that you could imagine, where there's a global EMP that there's no technology anymore. Like, if your money's in technology, that would be a question you would need to ask in terms of worst case scenario. Well, here's the reality. The second one person put the code that is called the Bitcoin network to use on the network would immediately start off right where it left off. It's unkillable. It's been birthed and it's etched in stone for all eternity. Those blocks that have been created, that we call the blockchain, that make up all of the birth of that Bitcoin, they can't ever be clawed back. They can't ever be killed. They're here for good. So it's as secure of a financial network as we've ever created by man. And if you're talking about like why you should own a piece of it, well, why should you own some gold, or why should you own stocks, or why should you own anything? You should own it for its appreciatory value. It's had an internal appreciation rate of every year of over 100% on average. It's outperformed every other asset class. And on top of it, you control it. Absolutely. It's like an emergency fund that you have buried in the backyard, but you don't have to dig a hole and you don't have to dig it up. It's electronically buried. So it offers a convenience that no other tangible asset provides. And if you want to keep an emergency fund at your house, there's risk there, right? If you keep cash at the house, there's risk in that. You can do the same thing with Bitcoin, but instead of the cash that's losing value, you can have Bitcoin that's growing in value because it's becoming scarcer and scarcer, and because the global money supply continues to go up. And those two factors make Bitcoin's price, consistently gone up over the last 16 years. So don't believe me, believe people that are much smarter, like Larry Fink, who's, the founder of BlackRock, and he controls as much Bitcoin as anybody on the earth through his ETF fund. So they've put their due diligence, they've set the bar very high. It took traditional finance extremely long to get into Bitcoin. Well, now they're not just they're in the deep end with both feet, and they are creating tremendous momentum in the space because of their efforts. So it's the bridge of the traditional finance world with this new digital finance world that you can't get rid of. It's inevitable. It will take over everything because it's more convenient. It's quicker transactionally, it's cheaper transactionally, it requires no human beings, and there's no errors that ever take place. So it's superior in almost every way.
Tillman Holloway is our guest. His company is called thearchpublic.com. Full disclosure, they are a sponsor of our show in Houston, and they are a software company whereby we'll get into that in a moment if he has time, where you can make trades on there. But he has been studying Bitcoin for years, long before he owned a company in the space. And I'm going to tease a subject because we're short on time here that we'll get to in the next segment. When I got up, well, I tell you what, let me just lay that out and then give you the break. Can you stick with us, Tillman?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And by the way, if anyone wants to communicate with Tillman or see his website or whatever else, it's thearchpublic.com. But I understand a lot of people are driving. You can email me through our website, themichaelberryshow.com. And if you email me about any of our sponsors or anything else, I will forward that either, in this case, directly to Tillman, the head of that company, or for anything else, any of our other show sponsors. If you want to be connected, I know the heads of each one of those companies, and I'm glad to connect you. If you are a Bitcoin insider and you're screaming and hollering going, Michael, you got that wrong yet? You're not who this show is for. A sweet lady named Bertha called up early in the show and asked, what is Bitcoin backed by? If currency is backed by gold, what is it backed by? And I made the point, we're off the gold standard. We've been off the gold standard a long time. Our currency is backed by nothing. We're just printing out paper. And the more we print, the more there is, and it's backed by nothing. But I do the show on almost every subject, just so you know going forward, if you think to yourself, he should know more about that than that. Many times I do. I do the show for people who would not get an answer to a question but for on this show. This is not a Bitcoin convention. We're not going to use acronyms and all those. I get emails quite frequently on certain matters, one of them being Bitcoin. And so it hit me, let me call my guy that I've called and asked for advice a lot of times, and let's take it down to a level that's understandable. You know, I had a listener who, unbeknownst to me, spent $700,000 investing in Bitcoin and went through my show sponsor, thearchpublic.com, who's my guest right now, and I didn't even know about it. This is a sophisticated guy financially. He just wanted to, he's got gold, he's got stocks, he's got this, and he wanted to go through Bitcoin. So when I say I want to have a conversation, it's a base level conversation, that doesn't mean that the people who are paying attention are idiots. It means that people might have a relatively sophisticated understanding of equities and bonds and treasuries and even gold and silver and commodities, or memorabilia for that matter, or real estate, but they just don't understand Bitcoin. Now, my question was, Wall Street Journal today had two different stories. One was Trump says that monetary policy through the Fed, and I hope he fires Jerome Powell. I want to see that. I want to see him. I want to see the quote-unquote constitutional crisis. Because if he appoints him, then he can fire him. And I feel confident of that. And I've always felt that, long before this little tiff. But secondly, he says he wants to make the United States a Bitcoin superpower. So Tillman Holloway of thearchpublic.com is our guest. Tillman, you got 4 minutes left in this segment. I'm turning off my mic. Could you speak to those two issues?
Yeah, well, the reason why he's wanting to do this is because the money printing has become a political weapon, and we all see it. It's bills that are passed with tremendous fat, 90% fat to 10% substance. We've seen the corruption of pretty much every government agency now being put to the test and being held accountable through Doge. So there's this incredible waste that has been going on for so long because the printing press is used. It's used for political purposes. And Bitcoin has no agenda. Bitcoin cannot be paid with fake dollars in order to have loyalty to any one party or any one person. It's a money and a network that was built for the people, by the people. And there's a saying in the Bitcoin community that is, you get the price that you deserve. If you are a bleeding edge technologist and love economics, and you got in 2013, you deserved a very, very low price, and you got that. and the price of Bitcoin has no cap. The price of real estate is become $170 trillion plus market cap globally because it's lendable. You can borrow against real estate very easily. You mentioned earlier that Trump is going to make America a banking superpower on the back of Bitcoin. That means that he has opened up, and he's already pulled the rules that used to prohibit banks from holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. He's rescinded those rules. So now Bitcoin can be held by banks. Banks can use it as a base collateral denominator, which means they're going to start to offer loans against Bitcoin, and that's going to be something that will drive the market of Bitcoin into the same type of stratosphere that the real estate market is. And so we're right now at about a $1.7 trillion market cap. And so if we go to real estate, we're talking about over 100x from where we sit right now. That sounds ridiculous, but if you understand economic principles and continue to dig deeper and deeper into why Bitcoin has been successful for 16 plus years, in spite of every government on the planet trying to take it out at some point, it's been successful because it's pure economics, it's pure math. And so this is a network that's built on the conviction of people who understand the network and want to contribute to it with computing power. And now that network has become so powerful that everyone has to recognize it, including traditional finance. And that's why you're seeing products that are Wall Street products being built on the back of something that is not a Wall Street product, which is Bitcoin. It's completely off their network. Bitcoin is not controllable on any one website or any one exchange or any one country. It is available to anyone that wants to participate in it anytime they want to participate. No rules. So you asked earlier, like in the old days, how is wealth? How is it fair that if you're not invited to the Facebook IPO, that you don't get to participate in that launch? Well, Bitcoin changes that. You can participate straight away, anybody, no matter how small.
Hold right there,
large.
because I think people want to understand this. I hope people are as interested in it as I am, but hold on.
I'm just sitting here listening to Michael Berry.
Trying to answer a lot of Bitcoin questions I get from listeners, and I'm not suggesting you run out and invest in Bitcoin. That's not what I'm saying to do. This is not a sales pitch or anything. I like to know a lot of things about a lot of things. I've had my gold guy on, Kenny Duncan at U.S. Coins in Houston, to talk about gold and commodities and why the price we hit an all-time high. Was it last week? Went up to about 3,200, I believe it was. I don't follow the commodity prices closely, but I like to have a general idea. Heck, I like to know what wheat's selling for at a bushel. I do try to keep up with the price of oil because I live in Houston, and for our Houston and Tulsa and the like listeners, this is a big part of our lives. So I try to know a little bit about everything. But many people in today's world of volatility of the stock market, which is not necessarily a bad thing, by the way, that they're interested in looking at alternate, diversifying. If you put all your eggs in one basket, then that's a dangerous thing. And if that's the stock market, then you end up getting mad at Trump over doing things that are good for the overall country but might cost the stock market for a minute. And then you're skewing your view of his actions, not based on whether they're good for our country, but whether they're good for your stock portfolio today. And that's a bad way to review our nation's policies and wars and the like. So Tillman Holloway, thearchpublic.com. Tillman, I don't think you were finished with your answer, and I think it's an important question. So if you could re-ask it in a way that you deal with this more than I do, explaining this to people. And I appreciate you taking the tone of not talking over our head. I know that's hard for you to do because you're an expert in it, but that's what I want, and that's what our listeners want.
Well, the value proposition of Bitcoin is that it's for the people. So if the value proposition can't be conveyed simply, then it's failed its mission. And back to access. Financial systems, when you have a central party that's in charge, you have financial offerings with limited access based upon your net worth. Here's the prime example. a certain segment of the U.S. population is relegated to be bankless. They have to go to payday loans and cash their checks for their work. Then you have the bankable folks. Then you have people who can get loans with their signature. There's this wide range of financial literacy and capabilities. And based upon where you fall in that range, you're limited to what those central parties are offering you as it pertains to access. Bitcoin's completely different. Bitcoin, if you want to contribute to the network, if you don't have money to buy Bitcoin, get into mining. You can literally take a computer and you can start contributing to the network, and it will pay you in Bitcoin because it values you. Your contribution means something. And if you have capital, ask yourself the question, how many of my investments are denominated outside of the US dollar? And is that a good practice if I'm going to be diversified against weakness in the US dollar? If we're going to be printing $5 trillion of capital over the next few years, which we are, that's going to drive the value of each dollar down. And so where do you invest when the dollar is going down in value? And ask yourself, is there something that I have exposure to that provides me the same benefits that Bitcoin provides me, that I have control over it, that it does not move with the stock market? Even though the stock market's been getting crushed, it's up 25% over the last month. So it's inversely correlated. It's not like anything else that you hold. And diversification, to your point earlier, is a good practice for anyone. So if you don't own any, start as small as you want to. Don't like I tell people who are just starting out, and I would tell this to a lot of youth, if you don't have the discretionary income to invest in it on a monthly basis or buy some Bitcoin, then go do some odd jobs. Use the sweat of your brow to just dabble in it so that you can see if it's for you, see the value proposition that it provides you. And once you've used it, if it doesn't change your mind, then you're that much smarter and you can speak to it that much more intelligently, and it may not be for you. But it's for a lot of people, and Wall Street has said it's for them. And so if you're seeing corporations adding it in much, much larger quantities than we've ever seen in history before, then one would assume that the price would have to go up with that demand. And that's why I think, it provides a risk-reward ratio or a potential reward that way outweighs the risk.
President Trump is a master negotiator. You see that in the art of the deal, and you see that in everything he's ever done. You saw it politically. The deals he would cut to win votes, the deals he would cut to get support, the deals he cuts to get Ukraine and Russia to the table, and he will get a deal done. And I think he'll get a deal done with Iran. And it's amazing how he does that. And you see it, but it shouldn't be that amazing. It's simple, basic human instinct. I say that Trump operates on a scale like if you're at the dog park and you're watching dogs and how they interact. He understands the atavistic nature of human beings at their very core. Whether he has to bully you or seduce you, he will do whatever it takes to get what he needs out of you at that moment. But there is something fascinating going on with President Trump. And at the very time that he's criticizing the Fed, and that's monetary policy, folks, that's the people who churn out all this cash that creates inflation over a period of time. And now, in order to deal with inflation, they've withheld the cash and in order to drive inflation down. But that means that you can't borrow money to buy a house, a car, or furniture, or any number of other things. And what he's doing, this is Trump 101. This is Trump masterclass. Is he says the Fed is the reason for the problems, not the tariff. The tariffs are not our problems. It's the Fed and these interest rates. And in that sense, he's right. But he also says, and I'm going to make us a crypto superpower, a Bitcoin superpower. That's sort of like, how many of you out there ever had a situation, girls, ladies, how many of you out there ever said, Tommy's not paying enough attention to me, and I don't like that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell Tommy, hey, let's cool this thing for a little bit. And you go to his favorite hangout with his buddies, and you go there with Billy, and he sees you with Billy. Now, he might kill Billy, He might hate you forever and never have anything to do with you. Or he might just say, you know what? I better put a ring on it. I'm going to end up losing her. You make him a little jealous and show him you have an alternative. If you're selling your house and you're asking $550 for it and somebody comes in at $485 and you go, not only will I not accept that, but just so you know, we've got another guy and he's coming in to see it tomorrow and it's his third showing and he's saying it's going to be a full price offer. Okay, oh yeah, we'll do that too. We want to take it off the market right now. Trump is using Bitcoin as an alternative to cash, to green money, and that's going to have that's going to drive up Bitcoin. Anyway, let's continue our conversation, Ramon. Can you ask Tillman if he can hang on with us?
Michael Berry.
The Michael Berry Show.
This is important. We're talking about financial systems and payment systems and transactions and government involvement in it all. And I don't want to be boring, and I don't want to only talk about the things that we ought to be talking about because they're the most important. But I do think we ought to ever so often try to work them in and learn a little something, no? Tillman Holloway is our guest. He is a friend, and he has become a guy that I lean on for advice on cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin being primary among them. He was in the business. He's a very, very sharp guy. And, I have lots of friends who are former football players at a very high level. He was a star for the University of Texas Longhorns as a lineman. The linemen you don't expect that guy to be genius. I would not want to pit my IQ against this fella. I'll tell you that for sure. He's done a lot in his life. He's very, very smart. And he was very interested in financial systems early on and finance. And he started a company that has become phenomenally successful called thearchpublic.com. And it's a software company where you can trade Bitcoin based on prices and all that. And he's explained the system to me to the level that I finally, after years of not caring, paid attention to it. And now it's one of the things that I read about every day. I find it very, very interesting. And hopefully some of you do as well. Tillman, I can't remember where we left the last segment. I'm hoping you do because you're younger than I am.
Well, I can tell you the volatility that you spoke to earlier is an asset of this market, and we've seen the traditional markets have that same volatility. And so what we've tried to do by the way, you can go to thearchpublic.com or archpublic.com. We've got that domain as well. And you can sign up for software that you control, that you set the parameters to, that will act on your behalf when the market conditions present the parameters that you've set into it. So if you say, you know what, I want to buy $150 a month of Bitcoin, and I want to do that when the market dips, you can absolutely set that instance up and set it and forget it, and it will work on your behalf and do something that would take you a lot of time, effort, and emotion to sit in front of your computer and do. And so you're going to get a better outcome over the long haul, and that service is 100% free to use. We've created the software to help people own Bitcoin and to help people get into something that over the last 16 years has been somewhat difficult and had a steep learning curve to get in. We try to make it very, very simple. We will help set up. We have a concierge division that can help set up instances and set up the software for you. But once you set it up, it's a set it and forget it, and you look back over periods of time, and you're very happy with the fact that you had something working on your behalf. Because most of us, with all the intentions that we have to, get into something new, there's life that gets in the way. And automated trading and setting up automated instances that act on your behalf is a real game changer. It really opens your eyes to the fact that you can be a market participant and not be an expert and not sit in front of your computer every morning and do calculations. It does it for you, and we can show you how to use it very effectively.
Let me hold you there for a moment. So one of my very dear friends is a guy named Ike Claypool, and we play pickleball a lot together, and our kids are the same age, and he has a son at UT, and he has another son at Georgia that's a little older than our kids, and beautiful wife. They've been married forever. He started at Arthur Andersen or Anderson Consulting. He's an accounting guy. He's a fundamentals guy. And he became a day trader, 25 years ago. He's a little bit younger than me. and that's what he does. And he's a day trader of futures and the like. And he is glued to his computer when the stock market is open because he has to execute trades. And we talk a lot about executing trades in time. Like they put in a big pipeline from Chicago to New York, because the difference between being able to execute your trade in 1/8 of a second or 0.0000001 of a second could mean billions of dollars, right? It's the speed, and we're talking about nanosecond differences. Well, that's because when those trades are happening, because he wants to hit this, he wants to sell at this price or buy at this price, buy the dip and sell later. That is so important that it happened at that specific moment. Can you speak to? I've got a minute and a half left. Can you speak to how what you do is important? Because unlike the stock market, the Bitcoin market is open 24 hours a day. So you set that price and go to bed, and if it hits that, you buy or sell whatever you've instructed it to do. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, that's right. And so we can work off of percentages. So let's say you go to sleep at night and you have a percentage in there of if the market drops on a 6-hour candle of more than 5%, I want to buy X number of dollars of Bitcoin. Well, you're asleep and you have that parameter set. And if that event occurs, you wake up the next morning and you're very happy because you bought the dip that you could not otherwise have purchased. And so the market doesn't care about when you want to be awake and when you want to be at your computer. The market presents opportunities to buy and accumulate all the time, and when you kind of least expect it. And so having automation sit there and wait for those events to take place is going to give you not only the opportunity to actually enter those positions, but when you enter those positions, to your point, automation enters positions faster than any human can click the mouse and put in the parameters. So you're getting the best price fills at those varying rates or at those varying time points that really matter. And so over time, those changes accumulate and they make a big difference. And so we've got customers, like I said, that are using our free product and doing very small incremental investing in Bitcoin with our product, and we help them do that. And then we also have institutional clients and companies and people who have companies that want to add Bitcoin at a significant rate to their balance sheet. Well, if you're behind the curve and you don't own any Bitcoin and you want to accumulate a lot, there's risk in how many times you buy in. So if you chose to put $1 million in the market today, well, you're tied to the $85,000 price tag. If price goes down to 65, you're down a considerable percentage. Whereas if you had a schedule and an automated schedule that took advantage of dips that got that $1 million placed over a period of 2 months, based upon when the opportunities presented themselves, then you're going to have a blended rate of entry versus a fixed point of entry, and that's going to reduce your risk. That's just a much more prudent way. It's called dollar cost averaging. But this is an intelligent way to dollar cost average and to do it without you having to sit there and manually
Tillman, I'm up
pull it
against
off.
a break, my man. I find what you say fascinating. I hope others do as well. You can find him at archpublic.com, or you can always email me, and I'll connect you to those folks. Hey, thanks for making so much time with us this evening, buddy. I appreciate you.
Of talk radio.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Barry Show.